Oh, yep. All right. One more time. Good evening. Welcome to Manhattan Community Board 2's December Executive Committee meeting. It is now 6:42 and I call this meeting to order. I am Valerie De La Rosa. I am the first vice chair for Manhattan Community Board 2 and I will be chairing tonight's executive committee meeting. Let's get started. We have an approval of the October executive committee minutes. Since we are one short of quorum. I think if I could get I believe that we would want to send these minutes to full board if we can't get a vote here. So
November.
In an extraordinary circumstance form because I'm sick, so I cannot put quorum.
So extenuating circumstances actually does not count towards quorum, but if we have quorum, you can vote. But since we don't have quorum, if you're online, you cannot vote. So, but there's nothing to vote.
Sorry.
That's okay. Don't be.
You can just bring the minutes.
Yeah, I think we can just bring the minutes to the full board. Do I need to make a motion for that, or
you could just approve them next month?
Or we could just approve them next month.
Okay.
Wonderful.
Do they? Okay.
Great. So everyone received those last night. Now you have a little extra time to read them more closely. Right. So I can ask, are there any corrections to those minutes? Because we could take corrections and then send out corrected minutes. That might be something productive, but I'm not seeing any comments, so perhaps I'll have more time to read them. Next, I have the chair's report. So for quorum on Thursday, and as we are experiencing here this evening, we spent about 15 minutes waiting to see if we were going to have quorum. So we are extremely tight on quorum this Thursday. I think we are right at 23, which I believe is quorum if we have 45. 22.5, so go up, right? 23 over 20.
We're at 25 now, but that's still a reason.
Right. So, but also what that means is that please make your best effort. I'm saying this on behalf of Susan. Please make your best effort to arrive at the Sheen Center just a little before 6:30 to ensure that we have quorum right at 6:30 so that we are nice patrons of the space that they so allow us to use. So we can get through our public session and business session efficiently and get to the part of the holidays we can spend with, yes?
I just want to make sure that they can hear us now.
So that way we can get through our public session and business session efficiently and get to the part of the holidays we can spend with family and friends. Thank you in advance for making the effort. And as Anna used to say at Condé Nast, if you are on time, you are late. Extenuating circumstances for anyone, kind of to Mara's point, I think this is a good reminder to committee chairs, but also at full board and at executive committee meeting that for anyone joining the meeting on Zoom as a board member, please remember to file an extenuating circumstances form with the board office. It's your ticket to be able to vote via Zoom once the in-person quorum is met. I also have had confusion about that myself, so I just thought I would just reiterate that both for this forum, for full board, and then at your committee meetings. And just a quick, as we look back at 2024, we accomplished a lot. We were tested several times. We continue to be tested, as evidenced by the meeting that was prior to this one. So we've welcomed new board members. We've said see you later or see you next time to other board members. So I hope that we all have an opportunity to rest and reflect on the year past and look forward to the year ahead. So recharge, refuel, so we can get back to work in January. I think 2025 is going to be an exciting year. That's it for this month's chair's report. I will defer to the committee chairs to give us an update on how robust our calendar has been this month. So with that, I will turn it over to Mark for the district manager report.
And they can hear us now, right?
I hope so.
And why can't we see?
Yes,
Oh, you can sit back.
Okay, great.
Okay, thanks, Katie.
Okay, thank you. So the district manager's report, just wanted to highlight that Thursday's meeting at the Sheen Center is in a different theater than we're used to being in. We're going to be downstairs in what I call a black box theater. I think they have a sponsor name for it. But anyway, just go downstairs instead of upstairs. We are hoping to have the January agenda calendar out this Friday. It's going to be tight, so I'm not sure we'll be able to do it, but it would be great if we had the agendas for all of the committees for which that are not driven by applications by like Friday first thing in the morning. I already received some, so thank you very much for those. The board package will go out tomorrow, so we're again trying to get the resolutions into that board package. I have the agenda for the full board meeting on the table. I'm going to steal it right now for one quick second, if you'll pardon my boarding house reach, and say that I expected resolutions from street activities. There's a joint transportation and parks, then there's a transportation, then there's a parks, then there's landmarks, cannabis, outdoor dining, and SLA licensing. If any other committee expects a resolution on Thursday's agenda, please let me know either now or after the meeting. Just want to make sure I don't miss something. Go ahead.
And it's helpful for you to have a number of how many we voted on, is that correct?
It is helpful in that we missed one a couple of months ago, so that's not a good thing.
Okay.
Thank God there was kindness in the room when it happened. But yeah, also it's just helpful in terms of assembling the board package.
Got it.
So that we can, among other things, print things that need to be printed in sections.
So just to be clear on this, so you need to know how many resolutions there are going to be?
I need to know how many committees are going to have resolutions.
Committees, not the individual numbers within those committees.
By 5 o'clock tomorrow night, I need to know, or actually no, noon on Thursday, I need to know how many actual resolutions. Because there's a cheat sheet that I prepared for the binder for the chair and the secretary and so forth. And it's a way to keep track of abstentions and recusals. Okay, so Airtable, we're moving forward. I have circulated to everybody the naming convention. I've gotten some good comments back and I'm taking all of them. So far, thankfully, there have been no inconsistent comments, so I can just accept what's been brought. I'd like to close that out by the end of this week. So if you have any further thoughts that you want included in the naming convention, and for folks online, I believe it's been circulated, but the naming convention essentially uses the address of whatever location we're talking about as one of the key drivers. We'll also have the date of the meeting at which a resolution was passed. And then there'll be tags that you add on. So it'll be, for example, the committee of origin, or within SLA, it'll be what kind of license. So you can search for, if you happen to need to know how many beer and wine licenses in our district as opposed to another kind, you can search by that. Okay, that's enough on Airtable now, unless I'm happy to receive questions after this. I wanted to brief the board on something that came up actually today. And I think I resolved it, but here it is. Obviously, a lot of our applications are driven by notices that come through the mail. It came to our attention today that one of our letter carriers has withheld mail for 30 days. Thankfully, we got all of them in time to hit the deadline for the meeting for which they would be applying. Obviously, this can't continue. I was actually able to reach somebody at the Canal Street post office who at first was dismissive of my call, and then I gave her several tracking numbers, and she came back with a very different point of view. Gave me her name, said that she will be our point of contact to make sure this doesn't happen again. I'm delighted for that, but I'm also going to schedule time with whoever's taking Tevin Williams' place at Congressman Dan Goldman's office, because that's usually the right way to get traction with the post office. I had to do this once before, so, okay. There was, I heard from somebody that, so I think you all know that SLA meets in the basement of St. Anthony's Church, and that St. Anthony's Church basement is a roller coaster, not a floor, so it has to be rebuilt. My understanding previously was that that work would start in late February, early March. There was a rumor going around that it's going to start now. I spoke with them today. It looks like we're safe for January, but I may need to, I've already asked Lennox Health for February. I already lined up Lennox Health for March, April, and May, and they don't go out further than that. But we may need to move up our relocation for those things. The trick, of course, is we need a big space, but we also need a space that doesn't have a curfew. And that's the trick. Every public school wants us out of there. I mean, 75 Morton has a sense of humor and lets us stay till 10:30. Most public schools want us out by 9 or 9:30 because that's when the security guard goes home. I've actually been in meetings where the superintendent was in the meeting and they turned off the lights, so they're very serious about it. Okay, so the search continues, but we'll make that work. Last thing is that unlike some district offices around the city, we are going to keep our office open throughout the holidays, except for the federal holidays. It may be a little short staffed one day here and there, but there'll be somebody to answer the phone every day and hopefully to answer questions and so forth.
That's great.
Unless there are questions, I think that's my report.
Thank you.
I
Thank
have a
you.
question about the naming convention, because I guess I haven't followed this discussion.
Okay.
So,
That's right there.
what, this is, oh, okay, all right, I'll study this out.
Yeah, yours is gonna be a little different because your committee, generally, the names of your resolutions tend to be subject matter
Yes.
as opposed to addresses. I mean,
Yes.
maybe Paul's Place, you put it by address,
No, no.
but that's covered in there.
All right,
and you'll
I'll
see-
look at this offline. Thank
So
you.
essentially from, and, you know, to cut to the chase.
Yeah.
Whatever you name it is
Okay,
probably what we're gonna name it.
okay,
So you may want to pay a little attention
Yes.
going forward to how you name it so that
yes.
whoever, because the goal for this
Is clarity.
and to make it a ministerial act from the office's standpoint, you don't want people, you know, thinking through and, you know, consulting, you want it to be automatic.
Okay,
Because somebody's going to sit down and just turn this into a thing that enters a database.
okay.
Okay?
Sure, great. Thank you very much.
The
Maureen.
the more important thing actually that should go with this is that everybody in the board, when you put an address in, should be done the same way in the reso.
Right.
Because the real way that it gets searched is not by the document name,
Mm.
it's by whatever the address. So if everybody uses
SLA.
W period, you know, for any.
I can speak to that. I can speak to that because it's I write everything full out because W, Houston, I tend to write it out because of that. Because I run into that quirk on 311 a lot with the addresses as well.
Okay. So maybe it makes sense when we put this thing up to have well, the style guide is for us when we
Yeah.
post it, and Carter's right, we have to do it the same way every time. It also may make sense to tell the public when they, in a little blurb, to say, call it West 3 Street, not West 3rd Street.
Because if you search what we have now, if you have to put in multiple ways to make sure you're all encompassing.
I know it.
Because historically, they're all named different ways with periods, without, I mean, and if you're really trying to narrow down and you're putting quotes around your search, you have to do it all three ways.
Understood.
It doesn't come up.
Yep, Katie has a question.
Well, I had a question about the dates, and I know Mark and I have gone back and forth, but I'd be curious to hear what other people here have to say. Because in the instance of the SLA, we can have a business with the same address come to us 2 or 3 or 4 different times for different changes to their license. And sometime I don't know how we distinguish between the time they came for the beer and wine and then when they got bumped up to an OP and then they applied for a sidewalk cafe and then they applied for roadway dining. The date might be very important in the identification line. I can't figure it out in my own head, but I'd like to hear particularly what Carter or Donna have to say about how we distinguish between different moments with the SLA actions.
Well, Donna was the one who suggested that we highlight the date in the name of the document itself as opposed to a tag at the end. So we're going to do that. And then to your other point about, well, at one point they came to us for beer or wine and now they're seeking an OP. There will be separate tags for RW, for OP, for different kinds of things. So when your search comes up and you see 4 lines, all of which say 123 McDougal Street, you can look across the fields that are generated by the search, and if you know which one you're looking for, there's the OP, that's the one I want. That'll be pretty obvious, I hope, to the search results.
And being a little old-fashioned, it used to be that street names were in Arabic numerals, but avenues were written out. So Fifth Avenue should be FIFTH. And we don't have a Fifth Street in RCB, but Fifth Street should be Arabic numeral 5TH. So I don't know how we're dealing with that issue.
Okay.
Do you have any thoughts on that?
Carter, did you?
No, I mean.
In one way or the other,
I
we
like
have to
that
establish a convention.
I like that convention just fine. It gets a little wordy with Seventh Avenue South, but I like that convention just fine. But again, the trick is gonna be first to educate the person who's doing the naming here in the office, and then secondly, to educate the public how to search for that online. So there'll probably need to be a clickable précis on how to do that, how to search.
Also, there are conventions already, right? I mean, if you go on Puma Maps or on the New York City maps or on, on a building department and look items up, there are conventions about how to enter addresses. Sometimes the number first and then whether it's a street or a road or whatever, after, so whatever those are, perhaps you could.
Historically, they're mixed up though, too, even on the city stuff. So it's all starts at a certain point, because you raise a good point, but I've looked at things and now they include multiple ways. Every single building, for example, some of them have multiple ways that it's entered. That if you search for them in all three ways, they all automatically find. The most important thing though is the actual full date that anything is put in on our community card, because almost universally we're interested in the evolution. Any topic.
Tell me more what you mean by that.
Meaning, if there's a sequence of things, we're always interested in the order of the sequence, no matter what.
So the date you're talking about is the date on which that resolution was adopted?
So if you did 2024-12-17 as a tag, anything you put in, that's today's date, anything you put in, you can order by that tag. And you immediately get whatever you've searched for, you can order it by that tag. It's almost always what we're interested in because you can see the evolution.
Yeah.
And it's almost, you can then look, when did something happen?
Right.
But almost every single topic you're interested in, you want the order to watch its evolution.
Right. So the only thing, the only change that I would make is that, per what Donna shared earlier, that's going to be in the name of the document.
Doesn't matter.
No, it does,
Can I suggest that we
because I can't have 1,000 tags.
Sure you can.
I can't have 365 tags a year.
The date should always be a separate tag.
Can I suggest that this is a complicated topic, that we not have this?
We never talk about it otherwise, so that's why we have to talk about it now. This is one of the most important
So I can't
historical
be an
record
online-
keeping things.
Because that's just what's happened, it's all emails.
Okay, well then let's have at it, that's a big
Hear
conversation.
what different committees and everything feel about it.
And
Once it's done, it's kind of,
yeah,
clean attitude, but it's kind of done. You can always add more tags, but the overarching thought of it, you want to try to make sure you've thought and everybody has had an opportunity to raise whatever, because somebody might say something that nobody else of the 20 people
Sure.
thought of. So I just think it's really important. I do a lot of data stuff, and it's better to get it right to start and add in and build on it than have to switch it.
Then I would say for human services, where addresses are not important, I can make sure that we always include the name of the agency, the name of the topic, the name of the organization. So for example, if it's a homeless shelter at blankety blank, whatever address, it could be that. If it's a not-for-profit, building bridges or whatever, it could be that. And I could put multiple names into I try to do that now anyway, because it gets confusing. But I suppose what we will need are conventions, what the conventions
So
are.
take a look at what's in there. A lot of what you just said, I believe, is that the intent was to capture it. Whether I've done that well enough is, you'll tell me.
Okay, great.
There are issues there too, because sometimes they're DSS, sometimes they're DHS, and sometimes they're, what's the other one? Anyway,
There's a bunch of them,
Yeah.
yeah, so.
No, but the same agency can have three different.
But this is not gonna be a multiple choice, right? I mean, I will be able to put in any name that I want to. So that, for example, if I put in project renewal and someone wants to follow the evolution of a project that Project Renewal did, they would be able to type in project renewal and any time project renewal came to us.
Yes.
Okay, whether it's a resolution or a report.
Well, right now we're doing resolutions, and then after that we'll do reports.
Okay.
But the naming convention will be the same, because you want to be able to find,
Yeah.
if there's a report one month and a resolution the next, ideally you'd find both of them from the same search.
Yes, especially for our committee, that's especially important.
Gotcha.
I think there's a little bit of confusion though, when what you're talking about, putting it all in the title, that's not gonna return it that way if you search for it. What Suzanne is talking about is very different. She just wants to put in project renewal. If it's in the title name, it's not necessarily gonna come back unless you search all the titles with the quotes, because the name is all this other stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So it's a little, the
I mean, I'd have
tags.
to say, I'd have to go to the search on the website and type in quote project space.
Well, if you do that now, every single place the project renewal is mentioned will come up. And that's not a bad thing.
Including other CBs, is that what you mean?
No, just in ours.
Oh.
It would, everywhere it's mentioned, it would come up. What you're talking about is never gonna be perfect, where it's tagged properly. It's only gonna be a starting point going forward. So you don't wanna encourage more specificity in looking. You want to encourage the broader so you find everything. And then have to go through your results and maybe knock some out.
Yeah, but I mean, if I put in the title, sorry, we're having this conversation.
Yeah, no.
So if I put in the title, shelter, I blank West 11th Street project renewal, that's a lot of information in the title. And I would hope that you could look it up either by the address or by the name. And either way, since they're all in the title of the reso or the report, they would come up.
So if you do it that way and you put in 73W 12th Street, for example, every time 73 comes up, you're gonna get a hit. Every time 12 comes up, you're gonna get a hit. And you're not gonna get what you want.
I see, so the
You still
search
have to
has to
search
be.
within the quotes, so the
Okay.
title name doesn't, like, but if you do this, it's a little
No,
more
that's helpful to
complicated.
know, but
'cause
we've
it's a
never
really
done
important-
searches, we've never been trained to do searches with quotes at all.
It's on our
anyway.
website now. You
So
can
it's part
search,
of our-
you can search right now every single time project renewal has been mentioned in the last 20
But I have
years,
to do it
maybe.
as quote project.
Yeah,
like,
right.
Space
Not
renewal,
project,
close
yeah.
quotes, okay.
And it's almost, but that's what I'm saying is the tags would be more, the committee name,
I
the
don't
year.
understand about how the tags work in the search.
Underline.
Like if
You
I,
can
filter?
limit the search to years. That's why that's important. You
so if
could
I do
limit
a
it to
search, I would
committee.
have several fields that I could fill in, like advanced search, and I could put in the title that says project in quotes, and then I could say date range,
Yep. That's
like you
exactly
do for the
right.
New York Times.
And you can put in which agency it was the subject,
Okay.
if you knew, that's the thing.
Well, that's the, yeah.
But if you
And
didn't
you
know,
would not
but if
if
you
you
didn't
don't.
know, right,
Yeah.
you wouldn't have to, right?
Yeah.
So if I just know there's a shelter going in at whatever blankety blank address, and I'm concerned about it, I could just put in the address and.
You can't do everything, but the things we're interested in are sequence, rough years, right? Generally speaking, everybody's interested, I thought that was 3 years ago. What do we do in the last 5 years? Addresses are important.
But
Committee
I'm
is
presuming
important.
that if I plug in project renewal and all the times that project renewal comes up and I knock some out, I'm gonna see the full report from that day, right? I'm gonna see the full resolution from that. So sequence is built into that because all the results will yield a bunch of different results, where every search will yield a bunch of results. And then you go through the results as you would in the library and say, this matters, this doesn't, this was earlier, this was later. So that's sort of built into the search, right?
As long as you search it correctly, yes. And we have a job to do to make sure people
Yeah.
are educated on how to search what it is that we're
That's great.
creating.
So,
Okay.
yeah, the hope would be that on the website
Yeah.
somewhere, there might be a little style guide or a little convention guide.
I think I'm taking that
That would be
away from this
helpful.
conversation and I agree.
Okay,
The other thing I would encourage everybody to do, I probably should have said this before, is on pages 2 and 3, there are a list of potential tags. Please add to them or tell me any that are stupid.
so tags are multiple choice, in other words.
Tags are an option for a search.
Characteristic.
But I don't type it in, I select from a given number of tags.
What if
If you
you could
wanted to tell us the tag,
Populate.
when you create the resolution, if you wanted to tell us what tags you want, we will of course tag it that way. We may tag additional things to it.
Okay.
So that, based on our understanding of who might be looking and, because the goal obviously is to put yourself in the mind of the person searching for something.
Yes,
And then make the naming and the tagging correspond to what that person will be looking for.
so a tag refines the search.
It
It
does.
doesn't broaden it, it refines it. So if you say highway but the tag says homeless shelter. The hope is that you're not going to get everything about a highway, but just where highway and homeless shelter intersect.
That's where it is.
Okay, thank
So
you.
Project Renewal returns 4 results on our search if you do it now.
With the quotes?
Yeah.
Okay.
So you.
What about a plus
July
sign?
2020.
Do we also have not, like, I don't
Is
know.
this document also going to specify how the addresses should be formatted,
Well, the style guide should.
like the style, so that will be part of this?
I have one of those.
And then
I
we
think
For
have-
example,
I
like
just-
Avenue of the Americas, Sixth Ave,
Yeah, no, that's
Yeah.
a great.
When? Today?
because it's both ways.
This is.
If you emailed it out twice.
Yeah, I didn't update it because.
Both ways.
Because it's on both historic,
Get all
right?
Okay,
Great.
I thought the idea of using whatever the Department of Buildings uses is actually a pretty good idea
Okay.
in terms of how to spell out the names. Although I like Katie's idea with the avenues and the streets.
yeah, whatever the convention exists is great. I mean, I don't know if that's the city's convention. There are
Okay.
times it's great.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mark. So now next we're going to review the draft January calendar and future 2025 calendars. Briefly, I don't think we're going to go through each one, but
Ooh, okay.
so 2025, it's knocking on our door. The outdoor dining group will likely have a second meeting, but likely is probably going to fall on that, maybe that Wednesday on the last. But I'm not ready to confirm that yet. I need to convene with the committee. But it looks like for the most part, except for Thursday, January 2nd, we have a meeting on every single day except for the 29th and the 2nd. And then no holidays and no Fridays, obviously. Oh, on the 3rd, oh yeah, no, we won't have meetings on the 3rd. Anyways, any changes, any comments? Okay. And next we'll go to the standing committee reports. So first we have cannabis licensing, Mara Fitzgerald.
So we had, what? We had 2 applications. Sorry, I'm gonna walk out of my kitchen because my dishwasher's making noise, sorry. So we had 2 applications, finally. We had 3 originally. One was from an MSO called Curaleaf. They withdrew. And we had another one originally on 7th Avenue and 14th Street, which ultimately withdrew due to proximity issues, even though they were going to go for a PCA. I don't know, have we gone over PCA yet, the public convenience and advantage standards? No? Okay.
What's PCA?
They should be very familiar to SLA people. It's the 500-foot rule, but for cannabis, it's a 1,000-foot rule. They are trying to eliminate it, the standards at least, which was the 3rd agenda item. So we had 1 application for 69 Gainsborough, which is Florent. Actually, we had 2 applications from really 1 applicant for that 1 location. It was Mr. Michael Shaw, who is also the landlord of that space. He did not show up. He and his representatives did not respond to any outreach. And we know that it is unsuitable for many, many reasons, as we can look to our long history with Mr. Shaw. The second application that we did here also did not show up. They did not respond to outreach. I tracked them down to some weird real estate outfit out of Michigan. Still have not determined if the individual whose name was on the notice form is a real person. So those are going to both be denials, obviously. And the third resolution is our official comments on the public convenience and advantage proposed amendments. So we crafted what we thought were the best recommendations for public convenience and advantage. I will note that we have received a letter of opposition to public convenience and advantage from one of our district dispensaries, Alta. And also verbally from Elevate, because they would both be basically crushed if Curaleaf opened right between them at less than 500 and 700 feet from each. So that's it.
Great. Any questions? All right, next we'll go to Human Services, Susanna Aaron.
We didn't meet in November, Thanksgiving. We're not meeting in December, Christmas. We are meeting at the end of January. Mark, I wanted to know if you received my agenda for
I did, I
January.
think it's up.
We're gonna meet with project renewal. Presenting a plan. We've actually engaged this topic before. It's for a shelter that would be, I think it's 27 West 11th Street between 5th and 6th, and it's a shelter. When we first talked to them about this a few years ago, before it was interrupted by a lawsuit, it was going to be a shelter for women, for 70 women. So the lawsuit was killed, and the project has finally gotten its financing, so they're ready to come to the community on top of that. That's it for Human Services.
Any questions for Susanna? Thank you for being so succinct. Ladies?
We had a meeting, we had 2 meetings for land use. The city came to us and presented their vision for what they're calling Gansevoort Square, which is going to be an expansion of the Whitney, Friends of the High Line Municipal Building. There's going to be a public space that's managed by the Whitney, and then most relevant for us is going to be a housing development with up to 600 units of housing and up to 300 units of affordable housing. It was a very long meeting. We started a little late, but we went all the way till 10 o'clock until we were kicked out from 75 Morton. There was a lot of community testimony saying that they were against the height, the scale of the proposed building, as well as, there were a lot of comments from the committee as well as other CB2 members that were in attendance that we had been kind of left out of the discussion, and the city was coming to us with a lot of the kind of the ground rule, kind of the ground aspects for it already baked in. They asked us for our feedback on just a limited number of topics. And so we're going to pass a resolution asking the city to slow down their process. They're trying to issue an RFP in January, which is, just around the corner. They have 2 city engagement sessions that they've planned. One of them is the night of our full board. The other is the night of SLA, January 7th. So that really didn't leave a lot of time for people from the community to go and voice their feedback on the whole project. So we have a kind of an 8-point resolution that we want to pass, but primarily we want to ask for the city to slow down the process, give us some time to digest what we've heard, and for us to hear back from the community. We just feel that that's not a sufficient amount of time for us to process all of this.
Have you guys seen a draft of the RFP? I'd be so interested to see that.
No, we have not.
Oh,
No.
okay. And it's obviously, I guess it doesn't go through ULURP, or we would have had a scoping session.
That's the thing. they're planning on a ULURP, but they're planning on it in like 18 to 24 months. It's going to be, I think, at the end of 2025. So ULURP is quite a while away, but they're going to issue the RFP for the housing first.
They have to figure out what they're asking for.
In the RFP.
In the RFP.
Also what, right.
Yeah, I think the order is correct.
The RFP would specify what mechanisms they can use for affordable housing. Presumably,
yes.
I mean,
That's the other.
Tell them what subsidies they're.
Well, so they're going with a cross subsidy model, so they don't want to ask for any city funding. They want it to be completely funded by the market rate, and it's going to be a 60-story tower. By
LIHTC, presumably, right? I mean, the low-income housing tax credit, which is a commercially sold.
It's not clear. None of it's
Actually,
clear.
it's not-
All right.
yeah,
I'm using this 45X model.
45X model, yeah,
The new-
but they actually, they didn't mention LIHTC.
Oh, okay.
I think the 485 is the new model that they've introduced.
45.
For the mix of
45X.
affordability,
Yeah, for
yeah.
the mix of affordability.
I was at the meeting, but I came a little later.
Yeah,
Why, I felt like they were rushing this whole process.
yeah.
Why are they doing it right around the holidays into the new year where a lot of people are away and can't even attend these meetings?
Yeah, I mean, that's a very good question, right? And that's one of the, I think that's a lot of the frustration of the committee is that they're seem to be pushing this forward without any give for the holidays, for our full board schedule, none of that. Compared that to 388 Hudson and, you know, our work with HPD there, it's completely different. HPD definitely worked with us on schedules. There was more of a process for them to listen to us, report back to us. There were more steps.
And we had input into the RFP presumably.
We're also.
Well, whatever. We
So technically, we can't,
tried to, but
yes, yeah. Legally, I don't think we can directly affect the RFP.
sure.
Yeah,
I mean,
but
legally.
I
we
think there's a
don't-
rush to market because of the city's housing crisis and they're using the cross subsidy model. So everything was, when is this housing, when's the shovel go on the ground? And,
Plus other looming
but
things.
the question is that it's public
When,
property.
when,
That should be good.
And
That should be,
Yes.
is the
Public
private,
right?
is the private development
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
aspect
I mean, the market.
that worth the rush to have 50% of it be market rate housing?
right. There's no other, I think Essex Crossing was the only other development that they could name that was on city-owned land that was not 100% affordable.
Yeah, that isn't.
Right, city-owned land is usually,
Do you have another question?
yeah,
Yeah, because I came late, because I was at another meeting. What is, the Whitney's take in this? I saw them at the meeting, like,
yeah.
what are they, what's their take on it? Or,
A whole lot.
Well, they get to double, yeah, they get to double their
Footprint.
their footprint essentially.
But they're not getting the land for free, are they? I presume that they're paying for the land and to build it.
Right?
In
What is it?
2008, when they acquired the first property, they paid 18 million for it. And it was supposedly half of what the appraised value was. So
Okay.
this is opaque.
We don't know.
It's an
what they're
EDC
gonna pay.
transaction of some sort. And until it's registered, the sale, I don't think we will know what
Okay.
that is,
Okay.
the value.
Yeah, and also the value of the land would change after the ULURP, because right now you can't build residential as it
It's a
is.
restrictive
Hmm.
operation.
Yeah, it's an M15 district, so.
Right, but that's the land where there's the land of the building and then there's the land of the Whitney, although I heard that you guys were talking about, couldn't
You do
you
have
put
a
some of the
question.
housing on top of the Whitney, blah, blah,
So
blah.
there is a
Yeah.
right of first offer that the Whitney had as part of their original transaction.
When they first came.
And I think it's that they could have taken it all. I might be wrong, but I think, and instead they're taking a certain portion that's gonna leave 10,000 square feet.
I see.
Yeah, 10,000 square feet for the
And
house,
then the city is going to use that 10,000 square feet as the footprint.
which is
yeah,
just
to-
15% of the lot.
And what was put to us is a 60-story building, which is 3 times the height of the standard hotel.
Oh, wow. Katie has her hand up.
And I just wanted to let Susanna know that Janine has uncovered some documentation that this right of first offer was, there's just a $10 fee involved in.
No,
This is
no, you
wrong,
gotta-
this is wrong.
So
That
what,
is
maybe
just to
Carter can talk a
register.
little bit about that.
No, it's just to register the offer. It is not the value of
Register
the
the
offer.
agreement, it's not what the offer is.
It's not what the
It's not
transaction.
paying $10 for a piece of paper, you know, you
Yeah.
register something and it's just a dot, that's all that is.
Okay.
Any other questions for Eugene?
No, being
Great. To read the rest. Okay. There you go. Is anyone giving the landmarks report for Chenault this
Yes.
evening? Brian?
Yeah, we had two meetings. December 12th, we had 5 applications and that appeared and discussed and resolved. We also had a resolution to adopt a letter to DOB conserving the eye, ear, nose, throat hospital. And also copy that to LPC. Then the second, on December 16th, we had seven applications, but two of them were for the same address. And all those were, we did not have a quorum on the second meeting, so we're simply sending that forward with our recommendations.
Any questions for Brian? Thank you. Outdoor dining working group, I will give a short report. Things are heating up for the outdoor dining working group. We met.
It's getting cold.
Yeah, it's getting cold. Thank you, Susanna. That was great. It was a great play. We met during the last week of November. We met last Tuesday, and our next meeting is Monday, December 23rd. We, since yesterday, we've had 75 applications total, like since May, referred to us. That's 41 roadway cafe applications and 34 sidewalk cafes. We had 17 referred to us yesterday. And I'd say in total, we've had since November, we basically have over, we've had 45 since the beginning of November referred to us that are at various stages. So in the last 3 weeks, we've heard a total of 28 applications. 22 of those resolutions will come to a vote on Thursday. 6 of those, I think, were mostly the roadway. That 30-day period is very tight, so you will see our comments there. And we have 27 applications on the agenda for Monday, and that agenda will be updated online tomorrow. Just some top-level trends. DOT is prioritizing roadway cafe applications since it is less than 4 months until April 1st, when roadway cafes can start operating again. So again, that's like on the ground, like open for business on April 1st. So a lot of different materials that have to get fabricated and whatnot. We are typically hearing applications within a week of referral from DOT. And on average, and this stat I think now is probably not something we're going to keep tracking since the lagging date is the same, is it's on average it's taken about 6 months or 182 days for an application to get referred to us. So when they applied, not everyone applied on that March 5th date, it's staggered over the summer. So it's taken about 6 months, just for one, and then it just took 6 months to get to us. So any questions on that, for that process? Okay. Next, let's go to Parks and Waterfront. Susanna?
Yeah, and I'll also do the joint meeting that we had with traffic. So Parks and Waterfront, there was 3 topics. We have a resolution on a piece of artwork that's a temporary art installation, I think somewhere near the Garibaldi, that sort of area. It's this giant disco ball, fine. And then we had conversations about people really upset about PEP enforcement in Washington Square Park and artistic materials and artistic expression. And that was kind of a back and forth. I don't think it really resolved anything except that there's just questions about whether it's uniform enforcement and how that works. And then the other thing was we wanted to entertain a conversation about Jefferson Market Garden, which is a topic that interests me a lot. And one of the things that we found when we talked about it the last time, we're like, well, what's the relationship between the city and the Jefferson Market Garden? Was there an MOU at any time? So apparently Parks has gone back and there's no documentation.
Oh, wow.
So it's just been right. So, it's a strange thing. I mean, it was built in 72. The whole city was different. The value of the land was different. But like now, it's a big piece of land and it's run by a private organization. It's very beautiful. But anyway, so that's that. And Shirley's here, so she can talk about anyway. So apparently there's going to be an office in Strategic Partnerships Division at DPR is going to draft an agreement with JMG.
And an MOU is a
memorandum of understanding. So there's no clear relationship. I mean, there are no the outlines of what a relationship. We've always had questions about, about best practices in terms of transparency on their website, who gets to control when the garden is closed for private fundraising, for weddings and things like that. So we're hoping to get more transparency from them.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful place, but it's a very closed operation.
And you've been curious about that for a long time.
I've been curious
Since I've
about it
known
for a
you.
long
Yes,
time.
yes,
Yes,
yes.
because it's a big piece of land. Okay. And I guess Shirley can talk about the part that we had that was joint.
Sure. Shirley, would you like to go now? We could do the traffic. Oh, Katie,
Go
Katie.
now, or I can go later, whatever you
Okay.
want to do.
Katie, real quick, let's get Katie.
I just have a question for Susanna. It looks to me as if the Jefferson Market Garden is closed in the winter altogether. Did that come up in your discussion?
Over time, we've had many conversations about the opening and closing of Jefferson Market Garden. It isn't staffed by the Parks Department. It's a garden. It's like the rules about it are very unclear. So it's staffed by volunteers. And so understandably, it's not easy to always get volunteers to come out on, in foul weather. One of the things we wondered about is like, should the park, I've always loved to see the park bring it online and staff it and, and provide some of that material. But it also, in some levels, it works very well the way it is. So it's just a work in progress. Shirley, if you want, I can talk about the e-bike law proposal, or you can do that.
Well, no, I can do it, but do you want me to go now?
Sure, you can go now, yeah.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so this was a bill that's up in the city council. It's called Intro 0600-2024. And basically, it's simply to ban e-bikes from parks. And the sponsor of the bill, Council Member Vicky Palladino from Queens, actually presented the overview. And I thought it was really quite interesting because it was very passionate, the discussion, because there were real passions on both sides, which had much more to do with just whether you were for e-bikes or not than it had to do with e-bikes in parks, this being from our guests. And I won't go into the pros and cons, but they were all discussed. But the major thing and I was kind of impressed because I thought that both committees really gave phenomenal input onto what their interpretation was of this bill, which was that either it was too broad or too narrow. In other words, think about parks. There's so many kinds of parks, and this was brought up. There can be the little parks we have here, medium-sized, Washington Square, Saravelli, that are places where you certainly would not want e-bikes. And they're not really good environments for e-bikes. But at the same time, you got a place like Central Park, which has got the drives, which they are redoing right now to accommodate e-bikes and all kinds of bikes. So that was one part. And certainly the feeling was the bill certainly didn't cover that. And on the other hand, there's all different types of two-wheel electric vehicles, from the more limited e-bikes and the pedal assist that go maybe 15, 18 miles an hour, to those that go all the way up to like 28 miles an hour. And if you take out the control for speed, they could go up to 70 miles an hour. So again, it just seemed that you really couldn't talk about all of these kinds of vehicles in the same bill. You'd really have to be very much more specific. And then the other feeling is that, hey, there are so darn many bills right now. It's laws, forget bills, legislation that has been passed by the council that have to do with the regulation of e-bikes. And hey, let's see if we can get some enforcement on that before going into yet another bill that probably will only be there as a bill and will not get enforced. And that was what the conclusion was. And so the almost unanimous, 2 people did not agree, but between 2 committees were that we were not in favor of this bill, that we couldn't really support it because it really didn't cover what we needed to be covered. That was it.
Can I add to that, just as a member of the Parks Committee? The proposed law doesn't say no e-bikes on greenways. It says no e-bikes in parks. Well, there are no bikes allowed in parks. So why do we need a law that says no e-bikes in parks? The problem with bikes and e-bikes in parks is there's a problem of enforcement, not a problem of laws. The existing laws already would not allow an e-bike in Washington Square Park,
Oh, really?
in Abington Square, in any of those parks. And you know what I'm saying? Like, you're not allowed to have a bike there. So why do we need so it just seems silly to have a law that.
Specifically for e-bikes.
For e-bikes.
It said, they said because you asked the question in the meeting, they said we said it wasn't relevant, our community board.
Correct.
And they said that there are parks that have actively posted signs that allow bicycles in them.
Oh,
That
maybe.
you have to put a sign up to allow them, but otherwise they're not allowed. But
I
we
know.
don't have any.
We don't have any,
Right.
and I looked on the park's website, and the park's website says that bicycles are not allowed in playgrounds and that they're only allowed on greenways. Like, I mean, there are certain things, but in any event, I mean, I don't, yeah.
But the general feeling was is that this
Silly.
bill was trying to make one size fit all, and it really didn't.
I mean, the problem is enforcement.
So many laws that aren't being enforced or regulations.
Tell me next.
Got it. Any other comments or questions around traffic? Thank you, Shirley. Schools and education, Patricia Laria.
We had no meeting this month.
Okay. All right. SLA 1 and 2.
So we had our 2 meetings, that's the way one, we had 11 applications, one was a re-notification, we heard 5 of them. We are recommending denial of 1 at 146 Bowery. They came last month and laid over at the meeting to do a little more follow-up and came back this month that basically they brought their architect. There are a lot of issues with the building and the certificate of occupancy and the transfer of a license that probably never should have been issued because there was no proper certificate of occupancy for the seller. And the seller was part of the application. So anyway, that's that one. And then SLA 2, we had 14 applications. We heard 9, but 4 of them were the boats. So it's not as bad for SLA 2 as it sounds. And I think Katie can speak to the boats if she wants to, but she doesn't have to. I just think it seems like it's a better operator. So fingers crossed for that. The hours are certainly they closing at 7 and 10 and doing more tours, sightseeing tours and dinner thing other than the later night activities. So hopefully that will all work out. And there were 2 denials. One was for the Puttery on 14th Street. They came for a change in method of operation to extend their hours, add DJs, third-party promoters, schedule performances. We recommended denial on that. They're basically doing all of this now in violation of their stipulations. They have speakers on the roof, which was just, they totally owned. That the speakers were put there just to put there, but we had extensive negotiations with them. They wanted TVs when they came to us and they said, we'll keep the sound, but we're like, if the TV's there, the sound is going to be on. So if the speaker's there, the speaker's going to be on. So that we recommended denial. And then the other one was, I can never say the name of this right, Kudo, CE 27 at 27 Bedford Street. They came to extend their hours each night by 2 hours, so closing at midnight and 2 instead of 10 and 12 and adding roadway seating. Both of those things were extensively worked out with the community and were the main part of their public interest when they came to us initially for the application. So we are recommending, they also did absolutely zero community outreach. They've already gone to the SLA with the application. They've already applied to DOT and gone for the FDNY waiver without talking to any of the community members. So that was a recommendation of denial, and that's it.
Thank you. All right. Yes.
The Puttery, did any community people come out?
Yes, Zach Weinstein did come out and he had heard from, I believe, another few members of the community. So, yeah.
All right, thank you. And street activities and resiliency, do we have anyone here to give a report on that? No? Oh,
Raise
Katie?
your hand.
I can't.
Do we have quorum yet? Do you have quorum yet?
No. No.
No.
No?
Okay. Before we go to, so no street activities report. Mark, anything from Will?
Did they meet?
I've never seen.
Okay, I'm sorry?
Did they meet?
I believe they did.
Okay.
They what?
He submitted his
Okay,
resolution.
okay.
So for quorum, we need how many people?
On Thursday?
Oh, Katie doesn't count, right? So it's 7 still. I was thinking you should count it.
Why is quorum critical today? I thought we determined that we don't need
I
it,
don't
We're not
think we
gonna
can conduct any business unless there's
but we're not voting on it.
still conducting business, but
So we're not allowed to have this
Conduct
meeting?
business, technically.
Technically.
I don't understand. I've never understood this.
Yeah, we're not supposed to be.
I thought committees could meet without quorum
Yeah, right.
and submit resolutions.
Well, yeah, but I don't think that that's.
Does exec operate differently?
I don't think that that's.
Proper for the other.
My understanding is that when we don't have a quorum on
Yeah.
committee, we submit a resolution to the full board directly as if it.
Right, I understand that.
So
But the meeting still occurs.
the meeting still occurs as an information.
Right, like landmarks 1, landmarks 2.
Well, they're not supposed to meet, correct?
That's right.
If
So
there's no quorum, that's what it is.
So then we
So
should
we
go
break the
home at
rules.
7:31.
simply move,
Oh,
the business item to the full board
Which is the voting.
where it gets voted up.
right. Okay. I forgot to mention in the outdoor dining working group report that we do have 3 denials. One denial is for DeAndrea, which is a denial because a 2-foot width sidewalk cafe is not ADA compliant, so it never should have come before us in the first place. Another one we had voted on at the November 26th meeting for a pasta bar sidewalk. Upon learning new information, we reopened it at our December 10th meeting. They had submitted they agreed to our modifications, and then they started constructing a platform. They were issued looked it up, they were issued a DOB violation, and so we voted to reopen that and voted to deny that one. And then we have a denial for Oleo APU.
What was the last one?
Oleo APU,
Okay.
they are still operating, I'm sorry?
On Ruth Wittenberg Triangle.
Oh,
Yeah, well.
Like Renaissance.
yes, yeah, so they still had their roadway constructed, and there are several issues with that
And the
application.
second one you mentioned, that's not on West Fourth Street, is it? Because there was.
DeAndrea,
No.
a pasta bar is West Broadway, excuse me.
Oh, okay, because I mentioned this, where Extra Virgin used to be and had a sidewalk platform, and everyone always said it was illegal, but now there's a new restaurant there and they still have a platform.
So there's no platforms allowed, so DOT is,
Reported to Department of Buildings.
Yes.
Not sure if there was a violation. but-
yes, so we have gotten clarification on, it does say no platforms in the rules, and we have gotten clarification from DOT that platforms are not allowed, as well as the storm enclosure of enclosing an entire sidewalk cafe is also not allowed. So that is in the rules on the website, but it also, we have written confirmation on that. And they're actively enforcing.
Pasolino brand.
What was the result of Jack's wife's reader? Were you able to reduce their,
It's a different configuration.
is it?
It's a regular sidewalk.
Which one are you talking about? On Lafayette or on?
Springs/Lafayette?
On Lafayette?
Okay.
Because
Is that
the
too?
way it is, they're really out.
They're really out there.
So then you have a line.
Turn it back to be the regular way a sidewalk cafe is not
what I would think.
So not doubling up, right?
Parisian style.
Okay.
Facing out, if that's what you call it. I'm not sure if that's what you call it.
And technically, just to, Mara has a question, and I have one more point to make.
Yeah, so when these come to us, do we typically check if there are previous violations or complaints about how they've been operating to date? I have one across the street from me that just didn't close when it was supposed to close.
So we have, if it comes up or it's super egregious, it tends to come to the surface, but we tend to go by the 3 boxes that DOT has asked us for feedback on, which are physical footprint and dimensions, existing curb use, and pedestrian flow. And
those things determined?
They're determined by looking at the site plan, determining if it's on a bus route, determining based on the based on the pedestrian mobility plan, are they adhering to the required clear path for that street? We look to see if there's been an FDNY waiver, letter of no objection, that's usually included with the application now, or they indicate that there's a pending one. We also go out to these sites and do a visual check as well as we measure. So we also look for missing obstructions, the placement of obstructions also counts, and sometimes they place them wrong and they actually could need less clearance because it's actually diagonal and not directly parallel. So there's at least a minimum of 2 committee members who have gone to a site on average.
Okay, so like the one across the street from me, they destroyed a tree to make space for their road bed. They also, they've violated everything. I don't know if you know that. So if what can the public do? What recourse does the public have to be able to contribute to this process? If these violations haven't been flagged appropriately, because who has time all day, every day to just keep, calling 311 about these people? It's exhausting.
But, Mara, we heard, unfortunately, and several times that type of behavior is not a factor in the decision-making about the roadbed or sidewalk dining. It doesn't mean that we can't bring that up, but it is not a factor in determining whether or not
and license will be granted.
License is issued.
I will say that as of November 1st, anyone operating a sidewalk cafe has to be in compliance with the Dining Out NYC rules. So the 311 really starts November 1 forward for DOT. If they're even going to take that into consideration, it's not clear. But that seems to be the line. And obviously there's no roadway allowed at this time. So
last question, what are the penalties if they violate?
You can go to the diningout.nyc website and it'll explain all of they're issued a CAR, which is a corrective action request, I believe. And from there, they have 30 days to cure. And then from there, it turns into a summons and it goes through the whole process. And the different levels of fines are also listed there.
And we're okay with getting comments directly from the public on anything that's coming before us, anything that's on our agenda. I think we've had plenty of those, just like for SLA applications. The public can comment on bad behavior.
Well, and I would say that, anyone can come testify. Our written testimony, we take through a form, which is the 3 boxes. So that's how we take the comment.
Yeah, but the comments, just so you know, Mara, and it's not what we would like, but the way the program was passed is that past behavior, despite what anybody here may think about it, isn't counted as part of the application process. And I think it's been very frustrating to members of the public to hear us focus on the objective criteria of whether or not a sidewalk cafe or a roadway fits, because they will listen to that, but they won't listen to those other components. And I think it's very frustrating for everyone, including us, but
We try to give our comments by having directly applied the rules to the application. So it's 31 pages. I've gotten to know a lot of it. Certainly don't know all of it. Just been very curious about it and how it's applied, and also ensuring that our interpretation of the rules is what the agency's applying. Katie.
So what do we do with an application that you approve today? They start functioning and they function poorly. They don't do everything that they're supposed to do. And it's not just those rules, but they're serving minors, God knows what, and then in 1 year, how do we address this issue?
Well, so that, it's a Donna's point.
I mean, if it's SLA related with their liquor license, it's an SLA enforcement issue, and that should be reported to the SLA.
Well, let me use another example. Their chairs have drifted outside of the building lot frontage. You know what I mean? Next spring, we discovered that the chairs are all the way down the block, which is less of an SLA issue, but more of a sidewalk cafe issue. So then what do we do?
If you would file, that would be a site condition setup. They have been extremely responsive on, even when I've been asking very general questions about enclosure, I'm right away met with, what's the address of this, so that we can give it to send an inspector out there, or this is a DOB, we're going to send it into DOB. So if you see anyone constructing some sort of enclosure on a sidewalk, that's a DOB issue of usually a construction without a permit most of the time. But they're being very, very responsive.
just to your point though, Katie, interestingly enough, that's a both agency problem. Because the liquor authority is very interested, and that's one of their major rules, is that you can only serve alcohol in your demised premises. So if you extend your premises beyond your licensed area, it's actually, if it's enforced, it's a serious violation because you've extended your premises improperly beyond what you're supposed to do, so.
Mm-hmm. And then I'd also point out, if anyone's curious, on the dining out or diningout.nyc website, that if you go to the apply button, you will be met with a map, and it'll show you all of the approved locations. There are 12.
And can I just say one thing on that, Valerie? I realize maybe it's changed again. It does it by community district and then by community board. You have to put in, like Manhattan, for the community board to come up. I don't think it was that way a month ago. And then all of a sudden I went and looked the other day and it had changed, and I thought they removed community board, and then I put in Manhattan and it all came back up. So. Yeah.
Other than that, thank you for letting me add to my report. I just thought that was important to get through. So also, to quickly wrap that up, you may see us in the resolutions that come to vote. In order, what we present to the board may count more towards the board's opinion of it than DOT's opinion is kind of the big thing. So while you may see, we saw this many outdoor dining complaints and whatnot, we still are allowed to, for ourselves and how we govern ourselves, look at that and evaluate as to how we vote. So again, the full board, the vote count is not communicated to DOT formally. They don't ask for it on the form. Just so that's all right. Any new business?
We did, this is a little bit of Mark's purview, but we did utilize our Otter for the first time.
Okay.
And we
can you explain what Otter is?
This Otter it was their transcription service, which transcribes the meetings, but it also utilized the AI feature of it to summarize the meeting. And it's a little bit of a labor intensive process, but it was the first exploration of it. And we did it on the land use meeting, and it came out pretty interesting.
I noticed that you asked it AI question.
Oh, yes, I asked an AI
So-
question.
Evaluate the
Because it
meeting.
wasn't just,
Yeah, yeah.
wasn't
I said, what should CB2 do?
it wasn't just.
We have our own CB2 AI agent.
And it came out with pretty interesting results.
It did, actually.
It's pretty good.
It's gonna put us out of work, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Now, if we could only write the reso.
So it's an
Very
interesting,
intuitive. You have to.
it's interesting
find it.
tool, and I think it, for public hearings, bigger public hearings, and I had utilized this during the Soho NoHo, but it was when it was just the transcription services. And it really is very helpful
For a
to go
long
back,
meeting, right?
for a long meeting, to go back to just put, so you can read through it. And, and not all of us have an attention span to keep, for that, but it's a great for informational reports, stuff like that.
Well, it's
you know.
also because it's describing what's being,
Doing a
not
summary.
necessarily the reading a transcript and then kind of having to think through it. So I
It
noticed that.
summarizes.
It takes a little bit of different kind of work, but it was just an interesting, and I'm not sure we have a capacity from the office point to do this yet, but it was just an exploration of.
How much work was it to feed that all in?
Well, feeding it in wasn't a problem, it's tagging it,
Okay.
doing a sort of cleanup of just
I know.
super top level.
I know.
there must be something wrong.
Like
No.
things that are wrong in the transcription?
People's names.
All right.
The public.
Great. Well, thank you for sharing that. So committee chairs, keep that in mind as a potential tool for maybe, and again, not going to over promise whatnot, but just know that's there. Yeah.
Yeah, let's.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Second.
So with that, I'm going to adjourn this meeting. It is 7:53. Thank you.
Susanna, it's a great tool for your committee.
Yeah.
Things that you got.
So how do, well, whatever.
Yeah, so after your meeting.